And we're live, everybody. Welcome in. That was a little delayed. It is right after the earnings call from Tesla on Tuesday, 4/23, April 23rd. It's a little after 6:30 p.m. Central. Now that I've had a few seconds to digest what just happened with Tesla, we were just doing a 3.5, almost 4-hour long live stream covering the whole event right on this channel. I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm going to try to dump them on this video now, and then we'll do more tomorrow because I'm sure all of you are brain dead, just like I am. But I'm going to try my best to go through this. So now it's 6:30 right now, Central. Stock is up about 12%. Obviously, nothing in this video is investment or financial advice, but it is something I know a lot of you follow me for Tesla specifically. And there's a lot to talk about, you guys. There's a lot to talk about. If you're joining me live, we'll do a Q&A session in the back half of this video. If you're on recording, make sure you pull up the live chat. Okay. I think the reason why this is doing this, again, not financial investment advice, but I just want to get my thoughts out there, is because of a passage in the Tesla earnings deck that points to a shift in how the market is thinking about Tesla's long-term ambitions. And actually, really, in reality, medium to short-term ambitions more than anything. And it has nothing to do with the AI angle, which I think is what Tesla really tried to do on this call, and I'll talk about a lot on this live stream as well. But it's more around where they're going with cars. And the car thing is what's driving a lot of what's happening with Tesla, I believe. And this was kind of a bombshell for a lot of people. So this was on the product page on the Tesla earnings deck on page 10. We have updated our future vehicle lineup to accelerate the launch of new models ahead of our previously communicated start of production in the second half of 2025. What this refers to is Tesla's Gen 3 platform. Tesla came out with a Gen 3 platform that they announced during Investor Day of last year, where they had this on-box process that was going to revolutionize, what they're saying, revolutionize how cars are made. Now, Tesla's saying, we're actually going to figure out how to take parts of that and use it in our existing line of Model 3 and Y to bring those products forward. These new vehicles, including more affordable models, will utilize aspects of the next generation platform as well as aspects of our current platforms and will be able to be produced on the same manufacturing lines as our current vehicle lineup. Now, this is a pretty big deal. This statement is a really, really big deal because what this basically means, and Elon Musk talked about this on the call, is that when people were reading that Reuters article that came out about 2 or 3 weeks ago that said that Tesla has canceled this compact car, this cheaper car, a lot of people were under the thought that Tesla was not going to come out with a cheaper car or they would delay their cheaper car. The opposite has happened, y'all. Tesla is moving it forward, right? Our previously communicated start of production in the second half of 2022. We have updates to our future vehicle lineup to accelerate the launch of new models, right? So the opposite has happened. So now when Elon Musk says Reuters was lying, again, now we know why. Tesla's coming out with a cheaper car faster than people originally thought. This update may result in achieving less cost reduction than previously expected, but enables us to prudently grow our vehicle volumes in a more CapEx efficient manner during uncertain times. This would help us fully utilize our current expected maximum capacity of close to 3 million vehicles, enabling more than 50% growth over 2023 production before investing in new manufacturing lines. So basically what this is saying is like, hey, we might not get the 50% reduction that Gen 3 platform was going to give us with this compact car or whatever else, or this cyber car, which I'm very excited to talk about as well. But it's basically going to give us the ability to make that cheaper car. And maybe we won't save 50%. Maybe we'll save 35%, 40%, 30%, whatever the number is. But we're going to make cheaper cars faster. And there is a conversation about why is Tesla doing this. I think the negative aspect is, well, macro is weak. EV demand globally is down because of that macro. There aren't enough cheap EVs. And so this is in reaction of a cheaper macro environment. But something else is happening too that they alluded to towards the end of the call, which I want to bring up, which I think puts Tesla in a much stronger position than people realize. Just my speculation. Again, this is not intended to be a you should buy Tesla stock video at all. I'm just giving you my take of what I think happened. It's something that I know a lot of people are interested in. Okay. Our purpose-built Robotaxi, oops, let me share my screen. Our purpose-built Robotaxi product will continue to pursue a revolutionary on-box manufacturer strategy, which is that Gen 3 process, okay? And I think this is why the stock is up 12.23% in the after hours trading, after the earnings call. Something has fundamentally shifted between what the market expected Tesla was doing versus what Tesla's actually doing. People thought that they were going to delay their cheaper car. No, they're actually bringing it faster. It's coming out faster than people thought. Super, super interesting development for those that are following the story very closely. The other thing that Tesla did on this earnings call, which it became very obvious because the verbiage that we're using on the call, the way Elon was very confidently talking about FSD and autonomy, is that they're very heavily trying to shift the perception of Tesla away from a car company and instead towards an AI company. And one can make the argument that says, hey, yeah, well, everybody's doing that. NVIDIA AI, Microsoft's talking AI, Google's talking AI. Yeah, there's a lot of chatter around companies that want to use the AI word. But the thing with Tesla is that they're very specifically saying that they have something that is not just them saying it's AI that they're working on, that it's legitimately a use case for them to make a lot more money in the near term. And this comes down to FSD V12 and how they're thinking about autonomy. On page 8 of the earnings deck, there's a passage about artificial intelligence software and hardware. We have been investing in the hardware and software ecosystems necessary to achieve vehicle autonomy and ride-hailing service, which, let me show you that now. We'll go back to page 8 in a second. There's a page on this deck, in case you missed it, where they actually have a picture of what their ride-hailing service would look like. So like, think of it like the Tesla Uber competitor. That has, you can summon the car, you can change the temperature, it gives you a thing, right? And so the vision is we're going to have a self-driving fleet of cars and you're going to be able to hail it just like the Uber. And here's like what they think it's going to look like, right? First time we've ever seen that from Tesla. We have been investing in the hardware and software ecosystems necessary to achieve vehicle autonomy and a ride-hailing service. We believe a scalable and profitable autonomy business can be realized through a vision-only architecture with end-to-end neural networks trained on billions of miles of real-world data. What has been the big fight between Tesla and everybody else, let's say, in the autonomous space is that, and people that follow this space closely, is that there's a lot of people that were very convinced that Tesla would not be able to achieve autonomy because they're missing a lot of sensors like LiDAR, radar, ultrasonic, so on and so forth. If you follow this channel, you know that the way Tesla's trying to solve for autonomy is just using 8 cameras and a supercomputer, basically, in the car. A lot of people are saying there's no way you're going to do that because you're going to need LiDAR and radar and ultrasonics and HD maps and all this other stuff. You will not be able to solve for autonomy without those things, right? But now we have this passage from Tesla. Since the launch of FSD supervised version 12 earlier this year, it has become clear. This is like, I cannot understate how big of a line this is as it relates to Tesla's confidence in this happening. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying Tesla's confidence in this, the verbiage is very, very obvious. Since the launch of FSD V12 earlier this year, it has become clear that this architecture, long pursued by Tesla for the better part of 7 years, might I add, is the right solution for scalable autonomy. And the reason why they're using the verbiage scalable autonomy is because one of the shortcomings with companies like Waymo and self-driving car companies that are using, say, LiDAR, radar, and all this other stuff, they have to invest very heavily in a car that costs potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars to manufacture because you have all these crazy sensors around it. And then you have to map the entire area it operates in, San Francisco, LA, San Diego, Austin, or whatever, right? That costs so much money and effort that the number of cars and the number of rides you're going to be able to do in those environments are very, very small over time because you have to spend a lot of time and effort to make that happen, which makes it very difficult to scale. And as you go to more cities with more maps, it becomes a lot more complex to try to account for a cone change here, a roadwork sign change here. Oh, this street doesn't exist anymore. It becomes exponentially more difficult. Whereas Tesla is saying, it has become clear that this architecture long pursued by Tesla is the right solution for scalable autonomy, which is those 8 cameras and the computer system on board. And the reason why they're saying that is because they think that the AI brain they have in their headquarters will be able to drive basically anywhere. And they said this on the call too, with little changes moving forward, let's say, but improvements are required for them to actually reach a safety level that's required. But they think that the AI brain with just cameras and a computer is the right solution to scale, and version 12 has made it obvious. It has made it clear. And the reason why it's so scalable, it's because 8 cameras and a computer on the car is no more than maybe a couple $1,000, which they're putting into their cars already for the better part of 5-6 years. And so the cost to do that is already there. They're already making millions of cars per year, like let's say 2 million cars-ish this year. In 2023, they're going to be able to make that Tesla says they'll be able to drive themselves, right? And they're going to make even more of them as the future rolls along. All right? So in this case, Tesla's going to be able to have a car that drives itself basically anywhere at a fraction of the price of everybody else. That's why they're so confident in this verbiage. That's why they're saying this. To further improve our end-to-end training capability, which is what the AI brain is, it's how it learns how to drive, we will continue to increase our core AI infrastructure capacity in the coming months. In Q1, we completed the transition to Hardware 4, our latest in-vehicle computer with increased inference processing power and improved cameras. This is basically mumbo jumbo for those that don't follow this technical stuff closely, that they're making a lot of investments to make their AI brain better so that the car can drive safely anywhere. Okay? This is like, and on the call, Elon Musk repeatedly said that people that do not or have not experienced FSD V12, they think they don't fundamentally understand what Tesla's doing. And if you follow this channel, you know this is something we've been talking about for a long time, this autonomous piece. And now the company is basically saying, it's basically here, y'all need to check it out, because if you don't, you're going to miss the boat. Not investment advice, not financial advice. That's what they're saying. Okay? Now, I want to highlight a few things from the call that I found very interesting. I made a huge document. I'll share the link to this in the description below. And if you're live, I'm going to share this in the live comments section for y'all so you can have access to it. And we'll put this right here in the chat if you're following us live. Okay. So, and I have them in bold. During the call, they made a comment that about 1.8 million vehicles have the necessary hardware to operate FSD, and that about 50% of people are using it so far, and it's increasing in each passing week. So about 900,000 cars or so right now in the world, they're mostly basically all in North America, are using FSD V12. And so what that implies, if those numbers hold, is that after the FSD trial is over, which, you know, Tesla did a free trial for everybody to try FSD, that about 1 million cars or so, 900,000 to 1 million cars, will sign up in some form to operate FSD, which is a combination of buying it up front, which a lot of people may have already done, or signing up for a $99 per month thing. So basically what this means is that there's a lot of people out there, there's at least a million-ish people that could start paying for this thing moving forward. So this implies that there's a lot of interest for this thing. There's a lot of interest. About 50% of people are using it so far, and it's increasing with each passing week. Supervised FSD, it has become clear that vision-based approach with neural nets is the right solution for the autonomy, and that in August, they're going to unveil the Robotaxi and a cybercab. Cybercab. This is the first time I've heard the company refer to this is the first time I've heard the company refer to the next generation car as a cybercar. The reason why that's interesting, there's cybercab. The reason why that's interesting is because it has the word cyber in it. Cyber, another product that Tesla has that has cyber in it, is the cyber truck. And the reason why the cyber word is there is because it looks like a freaking metal triangle. I almost typed metal triangle instead of Cybertruck on Google. In case you're not familiar with the Cybertruck, I'd be shocked if you're not. It's this thing. That's the Cybertruck. So when Tesla says Cybercab, does that mean that it'll have the same manufacturing process as this? Is it going to look like this? It's really, really interesting. Really interesting why they're using the cyber verbiage. I don't think it's going to be stainless steel. I think it's just going to be a design thing. More than anything, they'll use more traditional materials, if I were to guess. But that's the first time we've heard Tesla refer to the next generation vehicle as a cyber cab. But I thought that was a very interesting thing to highlight. Super excited about autonomy roadmap. Should be obvious for everyone driving. Should be a matter of time before it exceeds humans. Again, a lot of confidence around this FSD thing. Optimus should be in limited production for factory tasks by the end of 2024, might be able to sell it externally by the end of 2025. Now, this is in relation to Tesla's Optimus robot project. In case you're not familiar, from Tesla, this is what this thing looks like. This thing Tesla thinks we'll be able to do from Business Insider. Shout out Business Insider. Those who follow Tesla know exactly why I say it like that. This thing, Tesla thinks it'll be able to do general purpose tasks for anybody. Fold your clothes, cook, clean your house, use a drill, build cars, build a house, mow the lawn, et cetera, et cetera. And Tesla thinks that it'll be in limited production doing some useful things in the factory for Tesla by the end of 2024, might be able to sell externally by the end of 2025. Now, with this one, as is tradition with Tesla and Elon Musk, I would encourage people to push that date out by quite a bit. Who knows? Maybe this time is different. But Tesla thinks that there's a pathway for them to start using this Optimus bot internally relatively soon. The reason why that's a big deal is, number one, it proves that the robot has some sort of use case that people will use in some form, perhaps in a factory setting, perhaps in a warehouse setting, so on and so forth. And then secondly, is that it has a usefulness for everybody else as well, which kind of gives people the confidence that this proof of concept is actually going to be something that's going to be useful long term. And so that commentary, I think, points to not just Tesla making a lot of progress with autonomy with FSD, but they're also making a lot of progress with the bot. Now, again, I think that it might be useful in the factories by 2025, not 2024. But the fact that they brought it up in the call after being asked shows that this AI stuff with Tesla seems to be working. There won't be significant barriers as long as it can prove that the okay, so this is, sorry, let me reframe this. There was a question asked about what is the current assessment towards regulatory approval for unsupervised FSD, and the takeaway was that there won't be significant barriers as long as it can prove that stopping autonomy would mean killing people, which is a weird way of saying that it won't be significant barriers as long as Tesla can prove that FSD is significantly safer than a human, at least let's say cutting deaths by half. That was what was mentioned on the call. And the reason why Tesla said that is that the question was asked around, hey, what's going on with the regulatory approval of like unsupervised self-driving, just truly a self-driving car. And what they basically said is like, hey, states in the United States, as an example, have a bunch of different jurisdictions that already allow self-driving cars like Waymo and Cruise and Zoox and all these other guys. And these guys have already done a lot of the heavy lifting to lay out the regulatory process for Tesla. And so for Tesla to get into the game of robotaxi and self-driving cars, a lot of the work's already done. All Tesla has to do is prove that the solution is safer than a human, significantly safer than a human. And they think if they have data to back that up, they'll be allowed to operate in those jurisdictions. So for the people that were concerned about regulatory approval being a significant hang-up for Tesla, in the short term, perhaps Tesla can get in a few jurisdictions, and if they can really show that their solution is super safe and super affordable and super reliable to use, then in theory, it should be adopted quicker than maybe some people expect, is my guess. But Tesla doesn't seem concerned about the regulatory approval stuff short term, but perhaps long term, places like Europe and China, they might have issues adopting it. It just depends on where this thing is going. Then there was a comment around the fleet operation of Robotaxi, which I found extremely interesting. Tesla will be operating the fleet. Think of it as a combination of Airbnb and Uber. So this is the Robotaxi fleet. What's really interesting about this is that in the past, and I've made videos about this, so I may have to eat my words. In the past, I was convinced that Tesla was going to create a Robotaxi platform that was heavily customizable for third-party companies to use, like the airline model, where you have Airbus and Boeing, and then you have the airline providers that would outfit the robotaxis. This, which is aligned with what they've been saying for a long time, might I add. So this is maybe my dummy fault for not listening verbatim for what they're saying. Tesla will be operating the fleet. Think of it as a combination of Airbnb and Uber. And so this means that Tesla is very much going to own cars, and they're going to run the cars like Uber, and they're going to be in charge of running the fleet, just being in charge of ensuring that the fleet is running well, cleaning the cars, I'm assuming, dealing with the customer endpoint, so on and so forth. But basically an Uber that owns all its own cars that drive themselves. That was my takeaway. And interesting hearing that again as we near 8.8, the unveil of the Robotaxi. And then this comment, which was very, very interesting. There is a potential for using the car while it's not moving to run distributed inference. This is a very nerdy way of saying that when Tesla has self-driving cars all over the place, they use really powerful computers to drive the car. And if the car's not driving, that's a very powerful computer that is just sitting there idle. And so instead of just it sitting idle, they could sell the bandwidth of that computer for companies, for AI companies to run the compute they need, the inference compute on their cars. And it's very closely resembles Amazon's AWS service, the Amazon web hosting services, or I don't know why I'm blanking on the name, but AWS. It's basically Amazon has a bunch of servers that they use for their company that they rent out to other people. Yeah, Amazon Web Services. They rent out to other companies to run their web stuff, right? So Amazon owns all these chips, and they basically rent them out for people. Tesla would do this, but for inference compute. And what inference compute is, it's basically the compute layer for the AI to decide what to do with new information, basically. Like ChatGPT. When you ask ChatGPT a question and it spits out an answer, that's inference, basically. And so Tesla would loan that out to people long term. But it's interesting how we're starting to get those clues out there from the company. Again, the company's effort, I believe, to try to reframe itself as an AI company, not a car company. Now, there was a question asked about this more affordable car and what the timeline's going to be. The thing that we think why this thing's doing what it's doing right now. And there was not a lot said, but this was said. Updated line should get us to this is second half, H2. Second half of 2024 to the first half of 2025 as fast as possible. New vehicles will be on existing lines with marginal capex, which basically means that the company doesn't have to spend too much extra money to get these more affordable cars out of these lines. And they'll talk about this more on 8.8 on the Robotaxi unveil. The way to think of Tesla is almost entirely as solving autonomy and turning it on for the entire fleet. 5 million cars will have unsupervised FSD. It will be 7 million cars in a year or so, and then 10 million, etc. Within the decade, there will be several tens of millions of cars that will be fully autonomous. So, and this addresses multiple things that people that follow Tesla closely have been asking themselves a lot. Is the existing fleet going to be fully autonomous, meaning that I'm not going to have to pay attention and the car drives itself? Company seems confident that that's going to be the case. And they also say that this cheaper car could start production as early. I wouldn't hold them to this because, again, they're very ambitious with timelines, but theoretically, they have a lot of the production capability already built as early as the end of this year, as early as December of 2024. If I were to guess, I'm going to say June of 2025. The last possible day in this first half of 2025. And so that's the other thing that's being addressed with this. And then, yeah, man, it's difficult not to get excited if you're a fan of Tesla, the company, and what they've been trying to achieve for the last decade or so. It's hard not to be excited when you read this. But the biggest thing that Tesla has to face now is execution. They're saying a lot of good things on this call. I mean, it went exactly the opposite of what everybody thought was going to happen. And they flipped it on its head. They're like, nah, we got this. Especially with like the 10% layoff and people leaving and all this other stuff, like their VPs leaving and people that have been there a long time leaving. Tesla has basically took that and they just flipped it on its head. They're like, nah, guys don't have no idea what's about to happen. Cybertruck, they're building about 1,000 a week, started about a couple of weeks ago. The ramp is facing some challenges with suppliers, focusing on cost efficiency and quality. So for the people that are interested about Cybertruck, looks like it's going well. There are some challenges, but they're building about 1,000 trucks a week, which is a production, up and down it will go. But that's basically, call it 13,000 trucks per quarter at that 1,000 per week capacity, which I believe is already more than the Rivian R1T production. Because I believe Rivian makes more R1Ss than R1Ts. And so just to put that within context of another thing. As it pertains to FSD, full self-driving, the company's in talk with one major automaker in regards to licensing the product. And this was sort of talked about the context of like, hey, if you're somebody who doesn't license FSD, you're basically going to have a product that can't compete because no one's going to want to buy a car that can't drive itself. It's basically like people buying a horse in today's day and age. Elon has used this analogy multiple times in the past. It's like when the Nokia phone came out with, the last Nokia, and then the iPhone came out and people stopped buying Nokias. And so it's going to flip from being something that you want to do as an automaker to partner with Tesla to something you're going to have to do, they think, because it's going to make everybody else so uncompetitive to not have this type of hardware and software combination in their cars, which is very difficult to produce at the scale that Tesla has. And if you don't do that, you're going to be at a massive disadvantage. That's their rationale. Then there was a bunch of other stuff about stuff that is interesting, but not as interesting for this live stream. So I'll leave that for y'all to read if you want. There was some guidance about how they think the second quarter of the year will be significantly better than the first quarter. Some of the worries about the first quarter delivery numbers being down was a big issue. The company seems confident that the second quarter is going to be a lot better. And Elon Musk said, the CEO, that Tesla will sell more cars this year than they did last year. So putting some of the fears at ease for people that thought that their sales would be down. And they're going to be able to do that through price cuts and, just who knows, a bunch of different ways. But they feel confident that Q2 is going to be better. And now for the last thing, and this is a very big one, because it kind of goes into this conversation too about selling more cars in the second quarter and for the rest of the year. There was a question about 4680, which is the company's in-house built battery, and how the inception of the battery was from the fact that the company needed to hedge against lower high cost batteries that they were facing in 2019, 2020. What was happening is the cost of creating a battery was stupidly expensive because everybody remember back in 2020, 2019, the hype was everybody build EVs. And so these battery suppliers were getting a giant amount of orders to build batteries, which made the prices go up tremendously. It's a supply and demand, right? If you don't have enough supply, but you have a lot of demand, these guys could ask for a lot more money because these guys need it desperately. But now, if you've been following the EV space, you know that GM, Ford, Stellantis, and a bunch of other Mercedes, BMW, they are delaying or outright canceling their EV plans, which is making the demand for batteries go down significantly from these guys. And during this time, the battery manufacturers have been building a lot more supply capacity. So they've been building a lot more batteries for what these guys thought they were going to need. And now what's happened is now that these guys have canceled their plans, let's say, and delayed them, and I'll talk about why I think that's the case, then the demand's down significantly. You have a lot more supply of batteries, which means that now, what seems to be happening is that orders of batteries from the other manufacturers have declined dramatically, and pricing is now much more competitive. So now Tesla doesn't have to really worry too much about developing a super affordable and cheap in-house battery, which they think will be just as good, if not better, than suppliers by the end of this year, is some of the commentary they said on the call. That they're going to have access to very cheap batteries because nobody else is buying them, essentially. And the reason why no one else is buying them, essentially, in my opinion, is because the other guys cannot make a profit at electric vehicles. And we've seen this from every single player, and even somebody like BYD, who is an amazing automaker out of China, who's making a giant amount of EVs, it's still unclear if they're making a profit on those things. But we know from Ford's quarterly earnings that they lose $40,000 per EV sold. We know from Rivian's quarterly earnings that they lose a little over $40,000 per EV sold. We know that Lucid's selling upwards of $300,000 per EV sold. We know GM is not making money. We know Mercedes is not making money. So all these guys haven't been able to make profit out of EVs. They canceled their plans, and now they're giving Tesla a bunch of cheap batteries, and Tesla can already make them at a profit. So what happens when the battery for a Tesla becomes even cheaper, when you can already lease a Tesla for $299 per month, and it's the cheapest, best bang for your buck Tesla EV out there by far, at least in the United States and the Western world. That car will get even cheaper. And you'll have open access to all the batteries from suppliers, because those guys are tripping over themselves to sell the batteries because everyone else has essentially canceled their orders. I cannot overstate how huge of a deal this is for a company like Tesla that has a giant amount of EV capacity, has been working towards making a lot of cars cheaply, that is essentially solving autonomy, that is now going to get batteries even cheaper. And they don't even have to make them. Let's do some Q&A. Insane. It's like, if you've been following this channel closely for a while, this was something that we talked about before, that something was going to break, where the cost parity between EVs and non-EVs would make buying an electric vehicle a no-brainer. And in the market, there is a lot of hesitancy still, a lot of it rightfully so, because people either can't afford them or the infrastructure for charging is not there. But what happens when you have a player that can already make money at EVs, that's going to have the largest part of the cost, which is the battery, get even cheaper because nobody else can play with a profit? This is what's happening. And the only way for Tesla to prove this out is they have to execute at a very, very high level. Because all of this is they're just talking right now. This is a lot of talk, right, from the company. But if you look at the company's history of execution, that's where I'm going to stop. Okay. Let's pull up some questions. If you write question in the question box below, it'll be easier for me to pull them up, or just drop your comment, whatever you want to pull up. We'll pull up a bunch, and then we'll go through this. Yeah, it's... Anyway. All right. Yes, this is good news for Tesla. I kind of wish they could they would make their cars more normal, though. Getting rid of the stocks on the latest Model 3, I think, was a mistake. Yeah, so when we say stocks, we mean the stalks, the blinker and whatever. Yeah, I can see how people can be mad about that, and I totally respect it. I think it's one of those things, like, people will eventually get used to it. And in reality, if Tesla can solve for autonomy, do you really need stocks? But I totally get, I will say one thing. The stocks on the Model 3, or the buttons on the Model 3 on the steering wheel, are not good. They need to fix them. They need to, whatever they did with the Cybertruck with the buttons, they need to put that in the Model 3, because the new Model 3 does not have good buttons for blinkers. It really, really doesn't. And they need to figure out how to fix that. Along the same vein, right, with the Model 3 refresh, they just came out with a performance model. Again, this is about the cost thing that we're just talking about, right? The brand new performance Model 3, and I've been watching a commentary from Jason Camissa, which was on this channel before. Shout out Jason. $52,990 is the new price for the Model 3, and you can buy it with the $7,500 tax credit as well, which puts it at a lower price than the long range all-wheel drive. But this is what I'm talking about. Tesla's pricing advantage right now is already insane, and they're going to get cheaper batteries. So animated today. This is my third stream of the day. DRK, thank you so much, bro. You're just the admin beast. Shout out to all my admins. Shout out to everybody watching. We have about 4,800 people across X and YouTube. Thank you all so much. Love you guys so much. Very, very much. Wild day, truly. If range anxiety is the biggest barrier to entry for EVs, what would the range look like on a $25,000 car if it's sub 200? Why would it be bullish for a company if people don't want low range? So you're assuming that the low cost car will have less than 200 miles of range. I think it's dependent on the use case. In reality, a giant majority of people drive significantly less than 200 miles a day. The average commute in the United States is 30 to 40 miles. But if you look at Tesla's, as an example, entire lineup, their lowest battery car, I believe, is 270 miles. And the cheapest car, the $25,000 car, I would be surprised if it has a sub 200 mile range. You have to remember that when you make a cheaper, smaller car, the battery requirements go down as well because you're carrying less weight. So you take out the weight from the car gets smaller, it becomes a little bit more aerodynamic as well, potentially. And then, so you need less batteries. And then if you make it so that the motors are small and they're not really performance, that they're just, get you from point A to point B, which is what this car is going to be tailored to do, you get even more efficiency. So in theory, you could dramatically lower the weight of the car. You need a lot less batteries, and you can still get 250 to 300 miles of range. We have yet to see, but the physics are there. Just Tesla has to execute on them. Question: fire all of advertising. How are they going to get cars out to hands of customers? Good question, Chris. In the same way that they have been putting cars in the hands of customers before they started advertising in 2023. I think their strategy is just make cheap cars as cheap as you can, make them really good value for money, get them in customers' hands. The people that buy cannot shut up about it. And that's why we have a channel that's this successful. Thank you to all of you that are fans of Tesla, and they're out there just big fans of the company, and they can't stop talking about it. That word of mouth is the best way to sell the cars. And, stuff like this that's happening now too, it's going to create a lot of awareness. Cybertruck, basically every major celebrity is buying the damn thing and posted it on Instagram for free. Tesla's not paying them. They're just buying it. And, Kim Kardashian, I just saw, what's her face? Katy Perry, Kevin Durant. You're seeing a bunch of people with huge social media followings are posting Teslas on their Instagrams to millions, tens of, if not hundreds of millions of people. That's how you create awareness for a brand. One way, anyway. Did you see the news out of Argentina? No taxes for 10 years on EV factories. Milei and Elon. That's where... That's one of the advantages of the relationship. There was pictures with Milei and Elon Musk. Milei is the new president from Argentina. They were like hanging out. Milei came to visit Argentina. Remember, they're working on a deal to prop up a factory in Argentina. Milei is super pro-business, so I would not be surprised if he's trying to court Tesla to Argentina, which is obviously a great thing for Tesla because then they have a bigger total addressable market to sell into. If autonomy isn't supervised by the end of 2026, will you run down the street naked? Why didn't I read this before I posted it? Shoot. Yes, I will. This is us shaking hands. If autonomy isn't unsupervised by the end of 2026, will you run down the street naked? I will. I don't have to record it though, right? So you just have to take my word for it. I have my wife vouch for me. My wife never lies. Ever. That's why I married her. She's the most honest person I know. So if it happens, she will tell you. Elon threw the book at them, and now they're getting everything in place. Will take 2 years to do so or more. What do you think? Not really sure what this is sort of referring. I'm sorry. Maybe. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know what they're first to. I'm really sorry. Maybe help clear it up for me in the comment section below, and I'll bring it up. Okay. Do you think Optimus's first job will be to plug in and unplug robotaxis at superchargers and potentially ride in Robotaxi 3Ys to close the doors and or deliver food, groceries, etc.? Fantastic question. I think all of these could be use cases for Optimus. What's cheaper? Outfitting every car and every charging station with induction charging, like wireless charging, or is it to put a $25,000 robot at the charging station of 60 chargers and just have it walk back and forth and plug the cars in? Seems like the bot is going to be cheaper, right? And the delivery of food and bags and stuff, of course, if you have a I just read a hilarious comment. If you put the bot in the car and it delivers food and stuff, then of course Uber Eats kind of becomes obsolete, right? But then we're talking about, okay, how is this going to impact the economy long term too? There's so much to talk about, you guys. There's so much to talk about. This is what I was laughing at. This will defeat the purpose of this deal because y'all gonna want to just freaking set your computer on fire. Yeah. Crazy. Okay, why are there all these butt questions now? Okay. Derailed stream. Signing off. I'm exhausted. Thank you all so much. Love you guys so much. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm going to talk about this further. There's just so much to talk about. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe. If you want to see more from me. If you want to support the channel, links in the description below. Mwah. You have a bet. 2026. All right, everybody. Love you guys. Bye.